I should give you a little bit of background. I'm an assistant teaching professor in art history, and I come from a studio background. I have a degree in printmaking and a degree in art history, both BFAs from Virginia Commonwealth, and then I did all of my graduate work here. And I taught my first course when I was a graduate student back in 1998. And I realized very quickly that with the incredible number of STEM students that we have here at Penn State, that you need to, if you're teaching art history to them and want it to be a meaningful experience, you need to find some point of commonality. And so I started to teach about materials and techniques. And this really helps the STEM students to better connect. But it also, I think, speaks to my background in printmaking, because printmaking is a very procedural and method kind of tied way of creating art. I have a tendency to think in layers because my specialty was silk screens. So I tend to take things apart and put things together sort of in layers. And so when Penn State had its sustainability or its interdomain push recently for Gen Ed, I applied with a colleague in geosciences to create a course on the materials of art history. We call this Art History Geosciences 107, Rocks, Minerals, and the History of Art. And with the grant money that we received, I was able to do a really deep dive into the 7 materials that we feature in the course. We feature 2 pigments, and the rest are really sort of sculpture mediums. And we start the students with ochre, which is probably humankind's first pigment. Um, we talk about how it is obtained, where it occurs, how it's processed, and I've not only have all of this information in this course, but I have been trying since all of this research to sort of incorporate it into my other teaching as well. So I bring things into the classroom and pass them out. This semester, I'm creating a lot of individual materials videos for my art history survey class, and so on. But you know, our students tend to think of just going to Michael's or to Uncle Eli's downtown and buying a tube of paint, not realizing that these are earth-derived minerals and other materials that have to be processed, they have to be obtained, of course, and turned into paint. Um, so here we move from probably the cheapest and most common of pigments to perhaps the most expensive with lapis lazuli, turning raw lapis lazuli into true ultramarine pigment takes about a 2-week process that involves grinding and purifying, and uh, at most you get about 2 to 4% by volume of the rock becoming your finest pigment. And I actually worked with an artist in Michigan to reproduce the process used by artists, and spent a lot of time making paint and you know, sort of figuring out its properties. Then we move into more sculptural materials. So we work first with rock crystal, and it has a number of properties that make it particularly difficult and very, very, very much a luxury item. It is both hard and incredibly brittle. So it required a tremendous amount of expertise to work with. And I actually have videos with an experimental archaeologist at Harvard who reproduced the working methods of working with rock crystal from the ancient and medieval world. Then we move to the igneous rocks, particularly the hardest ones, so porphyry, basalt, and diorite. Um, and in this course, I cover not just how you obtain them and how they're worked, but also if they have symbolic properties. And I found that in the ancient Near East, there is a legend that about a terrible volcano demon who fought with a hero. He wanted to destroy the world, and of course, the hero stopped him from doing that. But all of the rocks in the universe sort of took sides in this great battle. And one of the only ones to remain neutral was basalt. And after the battle, after the hero successfully won, all of the igneous rocks were condemned to just be used as tools. But um, you could use basalt, however, since it had remained neutral, for important sculptures. And so this is why it's used for the law code of Hammurabi, for example, which was intended to last forever. It's incredibly hard and incredibly permanent. Or for sculptures like the one you see on the bottom here of Gudea offering a temple to his chief god. We move into garnet, which comes from primarily from Rajasthan in a trade route that opened up first during the conquest of Alexander the Great, and floods into the Greek world and was in use well into the 7th or 8th century. And then something happens to sort of take those sources away from trade. Um, but again, just exploring the properties of these, their sources. It's a way to get into issues uh, of sustainability, of issues of trade, contact between different groups of people. Here we're looking at alabaster, which is beautiful but very fragile. It can be damaged heavily by water, used for canopic jars, for palace sculptures in Assyria, and so on. And then finally, we finish with marble. And you're seeing some views from Carrara there, including an unfinished capital. So I've been incorporating this material into not just the course that this is all based on, but also in all of my teaching, kind of getting students to think about where all of this comes from and how it is manipulated to become works of art and architecture. So that's kind of a look into what I've been doing.